Over the course of human history, people have gone from living in small and secluded groups to populous and abundant communities. Today, a lot of us are lucky enough to have ease of access to shelter, food, and medicine. If, for example, you got sick, you could see a doctor or go to the hospital. It doesn't really matter how far you are either from these facilities. As with modern transportation, a lot of us are able to get to these places. However, 100 years ago, that might not have been as easy for some people to do. Now think about 300 years ago, 500, 1000, 3000. The common flu, a small nick, or a broken bone could have meant the end for a lot of people. Well, relating that to a fantasy universe, like say the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, sometimes those same rules apply. Sure, there are healers, alchemists, and the Nine Divines, but sometimes traditional and common medicines can't undo the work of a Daedric prince, especially if you're living in a closed-off and secluded part of the province. In today's video, I wanted to go through Malacath's Daedric quest, the Cursed Tribe, featured in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I'm going to play through the story, listen to the dialogue, and detail some experiences. Then, at the end, I'll discuss any lore, theories, themes, and messages that may be present within this quest. In order to begin, the Dragonborn will have to find themselves wandering off the beaten path. One of Skyrim's many features is that it's home to a diverse crowd of races. Obviously, with the 10 playable races found all over the province, it isn't shocking to find a dungeon, settlement, or stronghold that consists of a bunch of like-minded individuals. With that being said, it also probably does not come as a surprise that the Orsimer, or Orcs, one of the most looked down upon and discriminated against of the races, would choose to live in isolation. Not all, but some of the Orsimer have set up Orc-only strongholds around Skyrim. There are 4 of them to be exact. Here, the Orcs are as self-sufficient as can be. They live, hunt, work, and socialize within a certain vicinity of their camp. They look down on outsiders, and while they aren't hostile right off the bat, it certainly wouldn't take much to get them riled up. In any case, starting out at Riften and heading in the general southwest direction, you'll come across the stronghold of Largashbur. It's a humble place with a wooden fence, a couple of huts, some platforms for defense, and a mountain at its back. Right off the bat, you'll see that there's some commotion going on. A couple of the stronghold's orcs are fighting against a giant. The giant will have likely clobbered a couple of the Orsimer by the time the Dragonborn has intervened. Magic, archery, weapons of steel, take your pick. Odds are, the attention will be on the NPCs, leaving you relatively safe. Even though you'll have helped to fend off their assailant, you won't be welcomed warmly or with much regard. 2 of the orcs here, Atub and Ugor, will start bickering with one another. Atub vouches for you and believes that you can help them with an undisclosed problem. Meanwhile, Ugor thinks that you're an enemy to the tribe, will only bring misfortune, and that it's better they deal with the problem on their own.
We need nothing from outsiders. Yamarz will provide for us. We cannot carry on this way. You know we are doomed if we do not do something. Yamarz charged me with keeping outsiders away from Largashbur. Would you have me disobey him? You were charged with keeping us inside the walls. Have faith, Ugur. I only wish the best for our tribe. Fine. It's your neck.
The Orsimer kept mentioning the name Yamarz, as well as how everyone at the stronghold was on lockdown. No one goes in and no one gets out. However, given the dead Orsimer at their doors, I don't think they're in a position to wait any longer.
Forgive Ugor's harsh words. She's merely doing as she's been told. Please, our tribe suffers, and we need help. Our chief Yamarz was once a strong and proud warrior. Now he is stricken, cursed. He is weak, and so our tribe is weak. The giants sense this and intrude on our territory. Now they assault our very home. Yamarz refuses help, but I sense that you may be just what we need. Yamarz has demanded we stay inside the walls. We cannot leave. I must petition Malacath for relief. This curse must be lifted. But I cannot travel to Malacath's shrine. The ritual must be done here, and I do not have the materials I need. I beg of you, can you bring me troll fat and a Daedra heart? I have no wish to depend on a stranger, but I have no choice.
Before leaving, you're able to ask a few follow-up questions.
You do not know of Malacath? He is the Keeper of Oaths. the master of curses. He is quick to anger and slow to forgive. One who wrongs Malacath is one who will endure great torment in return. He demands loyalty and strength from his orcs. We have tried to please him, but he is now angry with us, and so we suffer. And a Daedra, of course.
Before venturing off for the ingredients, the Dragonborn can take a brief tour of Largashbur. Here, there are a few more named orcs, although none of them really offer thought-provoking dialogue. Lining the stronghold's boundaries are a few huts. One's for smithing, one's for skinning, and another's for alchemy. By the fence line, there are a few raised platforms that the orcs can use for defensive purposes. There's also a small area where they keep their livestock, such as a goat and a horse. Perhaps the most eye-catching feature of Largashbur, though, is the longhouse. Its design and aesthetic are certainly unique. Inside is where you'll find the chief of the tribe, Yamarz.
Curses aren't enough. Now must I suffer you too? What is it? Weeks? Longer? Feels like an age has gone by. I haven't slept in so long. Oh, of course. Because Malacath would take pity on us if only a useless outsider would lend us a hand.
Clearly, Yamarz is not your biggest fan. Again, the orcs are a proud and distrusting people. The chief does come around eventually, though. Within the longhouse, there isn't too much to see, at least there isn't anything that's unique. Probably the most interesting thing in here is the grand boss-like chest in the northern wing. Either way, when the tour is done, the Dragonborn can go looking for the Daedra heart and troll fat. There are more than a few places to find each ingredient. For the heart, the surefire way of getting one is by completing Mehrunes Dagon's quest and entering his shrine. There, you'll be able to face off against two Dremora and secure some hearts. Otherwise, check the local alchemy shops, as they're sure to have some in stock. Be sure to bring some gold though, as they can get pretty expensive. As for the troll fat, the same thing could be said about the shops, only it'll be more affordable. Furthermore, trolls can be common enemy types found around Skyrim. Frost trolls are in snowy environments, and regular trolls are in the swampy marshes. An enemy I like to call the New Player's Bane can be found near High Hrothgar on the 7,000 steps. There's a frost troll there that will always give new and lower leveled players a humbling experience. However, with all of that being said, there is an even easier way to procure those ingredients. According to the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, the Jorrvaskr living quarters has both of these items. What's more, they're right beside one another, making the search process incredibly simple. With the heart and fat in your inventory, you can return to Atub and move on to the next step of the process.
I will stay right here and wait for you to bring me what I need. Excellent. Now, you must come with me. You become a part of this. You must be present for the ritual.
From here, Atub wanders into the longhouse and retrieves Yamarz.
It is time, Yamarz.
You bring an outsider here, and now insist I call on Malacath for help, when he has clearly forsaken me. You try my patience, Atub.
Doing nothing will not grant our tribe relief from this curse. We must try.
Fine. Let's get this over with.
Together, the three of you move back outside and towards the center of camp. Here, there's a small shrine that consists of various items, all of them meant to be offerings for Malacath.
Now we begin the ritual. Great Malacath, we beseech you, aid us in our time of need.
Why are we bothering with this?
You pathetic weakling!
What's that?
Malacath has heard my pleas. He speaks to us.
You dare summon me, Yamarz?
What? What is this?
You don't deserve to call yourself an orc. You're weak, you're small, and you're an embarrassment. You let giants, overrun my shrine. Bring me their leader's club as an offering, and I might release you from this curse.
So it will be. Malacath has spoken, Yamarz. Your path is clear.
Very well. You, outsider, come here. I want a word.
Please.
This is all
help
your
Yamarz.
fault, you
Do
know.
whatever you can.
I'm
I
stuck
tried
fighting
to
a
depend
giant
on you.
now, thanks to you. So you're going to help me. You're going with me, and you're going to make sure I don't have any trouble reaching that giant. Don't worry, I'll make it worth your while. This giant, it's not the only thing in the Fallowstone cave. Getting to it isn't going to be easy. You're going to clear a path to the giant so I can conserve my strength. I'll make sure you're paid for it. So you meet me at Fallowstone Cave, and I'll get this over with. I could have my tribe back, and you can leave us alone.
Well, that might not have been what anyone was expecting. Instead of offering support for Yamarz, Malacath ended up tearing him a new one. Why did the Daedric Prince call the chief a weakling? He seemed surprised that Yamarz even contacted him, let alone asked for help. Well, let's just say that in due time, the plot only thickens. From here, Yamarz legs it across the county. If you're like me and don't know where Fallowstone Cave is, you'll have to either follow close by or wait until he reaches the entrance. The trek there is almost comical. For a weak and sick man, Yamarz is able to hold this sprint for quite some time. The chief will stop for every enemy under the sun, and he even takes a detour through Riften, which I have to imagine is quite jarring for its citizens. Eventually, after slaying his fair share of spiders and completing his marathon, Yamarz stops right outside the questing area. Here, there are clear signs of giant activity, alluding to the fact that you might have your work cut out for you.
If there's a chance this'll save me, then I'm taking it. I'll lead the way, but you'd better back me up. Let's get this over with.
From here, the objective is simple: protect Yamarz. Although, he doesn't appear to need much help from the Dragonborn. The chief is certainly capable of making it through the dungeon on his own. Fallowstone Cave is home to a few giants, as called out by Malacath. Normally, this dungeon is home to aggressive animals. However, with this quest active, the giants overhaul it and take over. Yamarz ends up having the same mindset that he had while venturing over here: eyes on the prize. If the giant isn't directly in his pathway, Yamarz will more than likely pass right by it. If, however, the orc does cross paths with one of these invaders, the two will end up duking it out. While Yamarz isn't a powerhouse in terms of combat damage, his defensive capabilities are impressive. Due to his blocking skill, his armor, and overall health, his HP bar barely budges with each hit. Sure, these fights would probably take a while, but I have no doubt that Yamarz would end up coming out on top. Plus, he's marked as essential, so nothing can really happen to him. Throughout Fallowstone Cave, the Dragonborn and the chief will come across the bodies of dead orcs. Best guesses here are that these are either pilgrims or other warriors who are answering the call of Malacath. Not too long into the cave, Yamarz leads the Dragonborn to an opening. This is the entrance area for Giant's Grove, the final stop for this harrowing mission. For the most part, it's relatively barren, at least for the first portion. Before rounding the corner to the true test, Yamarz stops and speaks with the player.
All right, I'll go kill this giant. Unless, of course, you'd like to make some extra gold. I'm tired. I haven't slept well in weeks. You kill the giant. Bring me the hammer. We go back to Largashbur. I tell everyone I did it. You keep your mouth shut, and I pay you. Handsomely.
An interesting proposition by the chief. It creates a fork in the road for this quest, but one that ultimately leads to the same outcome. For now, I'll begin by showing what happens if you decline his offering.
Fine. Then wait here. This should only take a second.
From here, Yamarz runs on ahead and ventures to the center of the grove. The Dragonborn follows close by, and as they turn the corner, the true challenge of Giant's Grove gets revealed. There's one final giant that's desecrating and occupying Malacath's shrine. As Yamarz confronts it and takes it on in battle, his fate is quickly decided. The giant clobbers Yamarz and kills him in moments. The chief's journey through Nirn comes to an end, and now it's the Dragonborn's turn to try their hand at the fight. Really, this giant is the exact same as all of the other ones. It shares the same stats and movesets. The obvious things to look out for are the game-ending glitches, as well as the incredibly powerful club strikes. Interestingly, I managed to cheese the fight by firing off arrows from behind one of the nearby trees. The giant would run up to me and get close to swinging, but for whatever reason, possibly due to line of sight, he'd quickly turn around and run off. After littering this beast with arrows, the battle was decided.
Yamarz was a fool. always trying to scheme his way out of responsibility. But you took care of him and the giants. 2 problems solved at once. Now, take Shagrel's hammer back to Largashbur, and we'll see about whipping the rest of them into shape.
Shagrel's Warhammer, a basic 2-handed weapon, is located within the giant's inventory. Before leaving, the player can have a look around the grove, as odds are you won't be coming back here. There are more dead orcs scattered around the site. Some are dressed as commoners, and others are decked out in weapons and armor. This gives further merit that pilgrims and warriors alike were here for different reasons, some to worship and others to protect. Near the statue of Malacath, there's a boss level chest which of course contains leveled items. Beyond the pyre, the monuments, the corpses, and the miscellaneous goods, there's not much else here. Like I said, it's sort of a one-off area for the Dragonborn. When ready, you can backtrack through Fallowstone Cave and exit into the wilderness. From there, a simple fast travel back to Largashbur and an interaction with Atub seals the deal.
Malacath blesses this land for the orcs, and the orcs alone. But what of Yamarz? I see. He did not survive. He died well? Ah, that is good to hear then.
Yamarz was a coward and a weakling. His deceitful ways have cost you all greatly.
So he has been punished. And what of us? What fate shall we suffer?
You'll have to prove yourselves, but I'm willing to give you a chance. Gullerzov's in charge now. Let's hope he's a better chief. You place that hammer on the shrine. You're the only one who's proven worthy in all of this.
Obeying the Daedric Prince, the Dragonborn steps up to the makeshift shrine and places Shagrel's Warhammer on the antlers. Within moments, the Warhammer transforms into the legendary weapon, Volendrung. Volendrung has made an appearance in most mainstream Elder Scrolls games. In Skyrim, it comes in the form of a unique 2-handed Warhammer. If you're playing as a warrior-like character who's proficient in 2-handed weapons, Volendrung is the piece for you. It has strong base stats, but its most effective ability is its enchantment. It absorbs 50 points of damage per hit. Essentially, that means never-ending heavy attacks. Speaking from experience, for my heavy hitter build, my biggest weakness is the loss of stamina. It can quickly turn the fight away from my favor. However, a weapon that keeps my energy and power well supplied while dealing incredible amounts of damage, I can't think of anything better. Now, reverting back to the Grove, this time, let's explore what happens if you decide to accept Yamarz's proposal.
Good. I'll be waiting right here.
From here, the same sequence of events occurs. Rounding the corner of the grove and getting close to the pyre, the giant notices the Dragonborn and a fight breaks out. Now, depending on where you stand, if you're close to Yamarz, he might snap out of his laziness and join the battle. This happened for me, but it also devolved into something much worse. While firing some arrows, the chief crossed through my line of fire and took a shot to the head. This was enough to fast-track his coding to phase 2 of this fight. Normally, when friendly fire occurs in Skyrim, your ally will give you a warning. However, with Yamarz, he went straight for the revenge kill. It all makes more sense though when the giant is dealt with.
Excellent work. You have a true fighting spirit. Did that better than I could have. Of course, I can't let you leave here alive. Wouldn't want anyone finding out.
Well, there you have it. It turns out that Yamarz was exactly the type of orc that Malacath said he was. Lazy, weak, and conniving. Who knows what other kinds of schemes and treachery he's performed in the past, especially against the members of his tribe. If you didn't accidentally attack Yamarz during the giant fight, now is when he'd actually turn hostile. As mentioned before, the chief's stats are quite interesting. Maybe it's due to him being weakened from his curse, maybe he's just a poor fighter in general, or maybe it's a little bit of both. But while the chief barely deals any damage, he can put up one heck of a defense. He's placed at the same level as the player, but according to the UESP, the formula for his health is 1050 plus the player's level minus 1 times 11.7. Combine that with his orcish armor and his block skills, Yamarz is built like a tank. Really though, all that matters from the Dragonborn's perspective is that you can maintain your health. By staying in the fight and simply whittling his health down, you're sure to come out on top. After his death, Malacath speaks to the player again, and the order of operations resumes. You bring the hammer back to the stronghold and it gets transformed into Volendrung. Really, the only difference is a new piece of dialogue while interacting with Atub.
What? Why would he do such a thing?
Yamarz was a coward and a weakling.
And that's about it. Really, this ending, or rather the lead up to this ending, sheds the most light on the overarching story, but it's still a little confusing. Malacath had cursed Yamarz because of his tendencies to lie, deceit, and betray. The traditional honorable orc leads their tribe through strength, violence, and bravery. Yamarz had none of those qualities, yet somehow he ended up as chieftain. Because of that, the Daedric Prince ended up invoking his wrath. This would have a bleeding effect for the rest of the tribe. Everyone else was forced to stay at Largashbur, and slowly, the stronghold fell apart. Ideally now, with Gullerzob in charge, the community will regain its strength. They'll be able to go back and do whatever it is that they did before. Eat, sleep, fight, hunt. As for the Dragonborn, you've proven yourself to be a friend of the orcs. They now consider you bloodkin. This allows you to trade with their merchants, interact with their tradesmen, and you can come and go as you please. The Cursed Tribe allows the player to peel back the curtain on the orc tribes and their strongholds. They are an incredibly proud and hardy people. This, of course, is to a fault, as when their community was falling down around them, they would have rather watched it burn than get help from an outsider. It's only due to Atub, the sorceress of the group, that they were able to mend their problems. While I'm sure the other Orsimer had reverence for Malacath, really, it was Atub who sought his guidance and knew how to actually communicate with him. Everyone else seemed rather standoffish and put off the idea that they'd have to go that far. I think in the end, that's one of the reasons, albeit a minor one, as to why Malacath said the tribe would have to prove themselves. They didn't demonstrate nearly as much faith and dedication to the Daedric Prince as they should have, and because of that, he's putting them to the test. However, I'd say the major reason for Malacath's examination is that he wants to ensure that no one else in the tribe ends up like Yamarz. There are obvious reasons for this, but some of the most compelling ones are actually hidden. Did this quest feel off to you? Did it feel spliced together, out of order, or shortened? Because it did for me, and I just discovered why. Interestingly, according to the UESP, there was a scrapped version for this quest, a slightly different variation from the one that we got. According to unused dialogue and data fragment DA06 Shrine, the lead up for the Cursed Tribe would have went as such. After your conversation with Atub, she would have sent you straight to Yamarz. You'll note that in the version of the quest we got, it wasn't necessary to speak with Yamarz until after Atub communicates with Malacath. Yamarz would have then said some dialogue to the player, and from there, you would have been sent off to Malacath's shrine. Only, this would have been a different shrine area. It sounds as though the Daedric Prince's statue in Giant's Grove was a later addition to the game. Where you were supposed to get sent to and what would have happened are also unknown. From there, it's believed that Atub would have then done a ritual back at Largashbur, and a final altar task from Yamarz would have ensued. As it would turn out, we have record of the unused dialogue. It points out to some possibilities for what the original quest could have entailed. The first meeting with Yamarz has the player saying, "I understand you need help." To this, Yamarz would have responded with, "Atub, meddlesome woman, you would help us? Help me? Tell me, outsider, can you banish spirits? For that is what I need." The player then asks for clarification, and Yamarz elaborates. "Spirits, ghosts, I am cursed, haunted, and I can do nothing. Can you fix that? Of course you cannot. No one can. It is my lot as chief of this tribe, and I so suffer quietly." "What kind of spirits?" the Dragonborn asks. "The kind that curse you, haunt you in the dead of night. There is nothing you can do, nothing anyone can do. Shagrol, once the leader of this tribe, unhappy with his demise, has dealt with Malacath himself to curse me, curse us all." This is actually a very important detail. At no point did we receive any information on Shagrol's warhammer. It was just a weapon that Malacath had asked the player to retrieve. However, now we're hearing that he was the previous chief of this tribe. Unhappy with his demise can mean a lot of things. While I'm sure Yamarz tried to have it come off that Shagrol died dishonorably in battle, I'd be willing to bet my top septum that Yamarz betrayed him in some way. This is reflected in Yamarz' betrayal toward the player, as well as Malacath calling him conniving, a coward, and full of schemes. The rest of the conversation goes as follows. The player will respond to that with, "There must be something I can do. You, an outsider," says Yamarz, "I'd sooner slit my own throat than accept help from you. To even consider it would be such a sign of weakness that I might as well abandon my tribe now." The player then asks if he has to do this alone, and Yamarz says, "I am the one cursed by Malacath. It is my burden. I bear it and continue to lead, and the others see how strong I am. That is how I rule." Thinking outside the box, the Dragonborn responds, "A truly strong chief would break the curse, not suffer from it." This would have gotten Yamarz thinking, breaking a curse is not a simple thing. It is dangerous, but to have won against Malacath himself, that would be seen as real power. Winding down the conversation, the player says, "So, use me to help you break this curse." Yamarz responds, "You persist. Fine. You go tell Malacath to lift this curse from me. See how well he listens to you. Offer yourself up as a sacrifice while you're there." So, knowing what we know now, the context clues from the original quest and the facts from the revised ones, it seems like Yamarz was obsessed with gaining a leg up on his rivals. His rivals were those who had equal to or more power than him. Yamarz likely killed Shagrel, or had a hand in his death. However it was done, it was seen as dishonorable. It surely wasn't a duel or a challenge of some kind. It was probably through backstabbing or blatant betrayal. Next on his hit list would have been Malacath. He would have considered himself to be a god if he could have tricked the Daedric prince. However, more than likely, this is where Malacath would have revealed Yamarz' true nature to the player, and what happened after that is anyone's guess. Given that Shagrel's Warhammer is in the revised version of the quest, I'd assume that it played a role in the original version too, perhaps more than we know. If anything, its context probably made a lot more sense. My theory is that the final stages for this quest still would have involved retrieving the weapon. Then, maybe while on the way back, Yamarz ambushes and confronts the player, ensuring that no one learns of the truth. Either way, we'll never actually know what the intended plot was, what the later additions were, or if there were any further cuts to the story. To be honest, while playing through this quest, it felt like there were missing pieces and altered plot points. I already mentioned Shagrel's role in this whole thing, but it also seemed apparent while Malacath was speaking to the player. It seemed like Malacath had revealed the twist before we were even supposed to catch wind of it. Even Yamarz was confused at Malacath's dialogue during the ritual. Well, I suppose you could chalk it up to the Daedric prince knowing something that the player didn't, and then that piece of information coming to light later. I still feel as though a few things were quickly spliced together for this quest. It feels like important details were taken out, and what we got was a bit of a jigsaw. I also felt similarly while collecting the offerings for the shrine. Trollfat and a Daedra's heart aren't very complicated or intriguing items. They felt a little too random, almost as if it was an afterthought, made to fluff up the quest a little more. While other missions in Skyrim have similar stages and steps to them, the Daedric quests are typically a little more fleshed out than that. So right off the bat, when I was told to go and collect 2 obscure ingredients without any direction or quest markers attached, question marks went off in my head. Furthermore, this wouldn't be the first instance where Daedric quest was dramatically altered. Mephalah's quest, the Whispering Door, is a shell of its former self. It was intended to be so much more than what we got, and I think the same thing could be said for the Cursed Tribe. In any case, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Malacath's Daedric quest down below, and until next time, keep on adventuring.